Yeah. 5:10. Welcome to the first executive of the new council year, and also nice to be back in the Civic Centre for our meetings. I'd like to welcome our new members of the portfolio holders to the executive, and I know you will enjoy it, and hopefully you will participate in the discussion here. Also to welcome Anne as the new leader of the Conservative group, and I understand Kevin will be joining us later, and Councillor Moore is giving her apologies. A welcome to Ian formally to this group, and hope you enjoy your role as well. The rest of us, we're stuck here at the moment, but we've got a lot of business to do, and so we'll crack on. And the first thing I would like to do is to apologies. I think I've got a full team here. I've done the apologies for Diana, so we've got a full team. Item 2 is to approve and sign the minutes of the meeting of the 4th of April. For those of us who were here, are you happy for me to sign those? Okay, I'll sign those. Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest is item 3. There is part 2 item, which is number 10. And before we go into that, I will move for resolution to take us into part 2 at the appropriate time. I've been told there's no questions from the public under Standing Order 19, and nor indeed from any other councillor that I'm aware of. So we go straight into item 6, which is appointments to outside bodies, and they don't quite run as they do in the morning paper, as they say, for those of you who read the racing pages. So if we work down through them manually, there's a couple of changes that we will make. So on page 15, so to the Community Safety Partnership, I won't be on that anymore, but Councillor Amal Hussain will be. So, please of reference, it will be Councillor Pearce, Councillor Hussain, and Councillor Wright, who will be sitting on the Community Safety Partnership, representing the Executive and the Council. The next one is the Devon Authority's Strategic Waste Committee, and actually that should be Councillor Ruth Williams. Moving down to the Energy from Waste Liaison Committee, that too should be Councillor Ruth Williams. Moving down again to Exeter Canal and Quay Trust, and Councillor Ruth Williams will replace Councillor Amal Hussain on that. It's just to align them with their portfolios. Moving still down, we've got the Exeter Fair Trade Steering Group, where there is a vacancy. We wish to put in Councillor Trish Oliver. And we run down to the Maynard School, and we will have to put that as a vacancy for now. Councillor Pearce will not be on that any longer. And so, and then I'll say also to Kevin that one, if people want to look at that one, come back with that one. Relate, Councillor Wright has been on that, but this just hasn't been meeting at all, so we're not proposing to send anybody along, and we need to make some contact with them. So it's, I don't know what's going on there, but anyway, that's what we need to do. And then I think that is moving down through it. So what I have committed to the other leaders is that we need to actually have a review of some of these. What are necessary, what are important, and what we should be doing. It is an historical thing of which we've always done, and and it's important that we do some of them. I think we perhaps need to have a look about them. I mean, there was one there which I think Devon Historic Buildings Trust. Well, I was the chair of planning for 6 years. Wasn't invited to one meeting. I didn't know if they ever meet or whatever, and I don't think anybody has been to one since. Now, if that is the case, it doesn't meet, then absolutely fine. Should we be on it? Shouldn't we be on it? We'll have to make those inquiries at some stage because it needs to be relevant what we're doing here. So with those amendments, if we can all, I'll put that to the floor. I'll move those amendments. Councillor Wright.
Sorry, Chair.
Well, I've done wrong.
Nothing at all. It's just on the recommendations. It says that we executive approve the appointments, but currently this is a council function, so we need to recommend to council to approve.
I've asked, we can recommend to council, but I do remember last year we went to council, or during, whether it was because of COVID, I'm not sure it was because of COVID. Not everything that happens during the period of COVID is because of COVID, if you understand what I mean. And John Street said, rather than keep going back to council all the time, why don't we have it just done through the executive by agreement with the leaders? That's where I thought we were.
Chair, you'll see that that is still a recommendation two, where we're asking for the resolution to be to go through so that in the year, if there are vacancies, then we'll implement that.
Yeah, I'm happy. This isn't a matter to fall out about. I'm happy if it goes back to council. Well, it will do because the minutes go to council or the report goes to council anyway, so we'll do that. Yeah, I could have a discussion about this. It's the executive that's approved it. The mere fact that the report goes to the executive, to the council then approves. So it's all about words.
I was just pointing that out that the words were wrong, really, because it should say executive function in that case instead of council function. I'm just being pedant for the word.
Well, this executive is approving these appointments. We are the executive. This executive report goes to the council, who will then adopt the executive report or change it otherwise. So this is correct. This is what we've approved. Yeah. Why do I feel like I'm at that trade union meeting in the 1970s? You know, at least in those days there would be smoke everywhere and I wouldn't see anybody. But anyway, yeah, okay. But if that's the change that has to happen going forward, let's just do it. So if we're all in agreement with that, all those in favour? Thank you.
Confirm that is unanimous vote in favour. Chair, is happy carried.
It's hard work to get a unanimous decision on that one. Agenda item 7. Members' allowances and expenses paid. There's just one recommendation. Vaughn, is this do you need to say anything, or is it just a matter of fact?
Thank you, Chair. There's really nothing to be time. All the information is in the report, but I'm very happy to take questions if there are.
Okay. It's an annual report that we have to do each year. Okay. So all those in favour to approve the recommendation, please show.
That's unanimous vote in favour, Chair.
Thank you. Item 8. This is the report of the Net Zero Excellency Management Extra Skills Strategy. And Councillor Wood, if you can read the 2 recommendations, and then I will ask the officer to come in. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. The recommendations are that the Executive recommends to Council to approve the Exeter Skills Strategy and to approve development of the associated action plan to enable the Skills and City Inclusive Manager to address the identified priorities.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Rosie, you want to talk to your paper?
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor Wood. So I just want to give a bit of background and context around the paper, so not to regurgitate everything that's in there or that's in the report, but to pull out some key points and to look at the priorities and next steps. So some of you will remember being in this room in March 2020 when we approved the original strategy just before we went into that very first lockdown. So understandably, our previous iteration of this strategy was impacted by the pandemic in terms of our ability to deliver on the priorities that we identified. A lot of that was impacted directly by the pandemic, which had a significant impact on our labour market and our residents and our workforce. And also in terms of the work that the team was needing to undertake at that time. So just a couple of things in terms of that impact of the pandemic. Some of you will be aware the furlough peaked at about 30% of our workforce, which was about 17,000 people. We saw our universal credit claimants at over 4% for the first time in a number of years. And we've seen job vacancies consistently over 3,000 within 5 miles of the city and 9,000 within 25 miles of the city over the past year. And that was still the same in April of this year, so a huge amount of vacancies and an incredibly tight labour market. So 12 months ago, Executive approved for us to thoroughly review our evidence base, so particularly in light of all of those changes that were happening, to enable us to then look at refreshing our skills strategy to move things forward. So over the last year, what we've been doing is we've worked on reviewing that evidence base, and I know some of you have mentioned to me that you've looked at our annex in a lot of detail, which has a huge amount of data and background and context in there. So well done, you persevered and got through that. But it's very important in terms of setting the scene and enabling us to look at where those key opportunities and challenges are as we pull this report together. So we work with an organisation called Wavehill. They have an extremely strong track record in working in this area. They've been working for Devon County and also the Local Enterprise Partnership on their skills plans and labour market studies. So in good hands in terms of the work they've been doing. They've also been consulting, so one-to-one interviews with a range of our partners and our stakeholders from key organisations across the city. And we held an event on the 6th of April, which brought together a number of those people in the room, which enabled us to have a debate on some of the key themes and key topics. So a really productive day, actually lots of really engaging debate, which has helped us to pull this together. So just in terms of some of those highlights from the evidence and where we sort of are with some of these things now. So our universal credit payments are now back down to just over 2%. But however, those figures do hide kind of a lot of kind of differences in that group of people, and a number of those that aren't actually considered ready for work. So they might be on a health journey, they might be waiting for an assessment. So we're not looking at that being the number of people that are ready to go and fill those 3,000 vacancies that we have across the city. What we have seen over the past couple of years is a significant number of our older workers and those aged over 50 becoming economically inactive. So actually choosing proactively to take themselves out of the labour market. And this has had a significant impact on the ability of our businesses to be able to retain their workforce and recruit into those roles. Now, whether some of those people will choose to come back, there's also lots of research and evidence showing people are looking for different things now from their working life. So they'll be looking for things in terms of their terms and conditions that will make them want to return. And you will have heard about things like the Great Resignation last summer, where we did see a lot of people stepping away from work, which has just compounded some of those challenges. We see across the city or businesses all of the time still struggling to recruit. We have got really good levels of qualifications, which will really support our productivity, but we're still seeing some of those skills gaps. So trying to understand where some of those mismatches are coming from in terms of the skills that we have within our residents and the available workforce in the city, and what our businesses are looking for is really important to driving some of this work forward. And you'll have seen from the evidence there, so nearly 45% of our employment is in 3 of our largest industries, so health and care, with that being the most dominant in the city, and retail and education. So those sectors are important in terms of volume, but they are of course all experiencing those difficulties in terms of attracting the right skills to be able to continue providing really important services that people will expect. One of the things that's quite interesting, the last time we looked at this report, our self-employment rate for the city was over 15%, and that's now just over 6%. So a huge number of people, whether that's direct impact of the pandemic or for a whole host of other reasons, taking themselves out of that self-employed position, whether they're just now not working or whether they've moved into employment. It's quite interesting in terms of that dynamic for our workforce across the city. And things that we'll have all seen across the news, there's a huge impact on people actually looking for different things from their work. So there's some stats in there around the number of people that will be looking for hybrid working or wanting to stay working from home, which is obviously good where those opportunities exist within different sectors, but those sectors that really need people are often those that aren't able to offer that home working or that hybrid. So those challenges remain in terms of attracting that workforce. I know there's some evidence in there around our most deprived wards, which you will all have seen. I think what's important from my perspective is actually this work touches on all of our people, it touches on all of our wards, all parts of the city and all of our businesses. So it's, yes, there will be some actions and priorities that will be focused on those wards, but actually this work will touch everywhere across the city. So just in terms of touching on the priorities in there, you'll be aware that the work very clearly links in with the Exeter 2040 vision. So very much about supporting Exeter to become inclusive, healthy, sustainable, and all of the work in there around delivering world-class education. So very much this work will support that inclusive growth agenda and elements in here very strongly linked with our net zero ambitions as well, particularly around construction and around retrofit skills. So our priorities in this strategy will very much balance inclusivity, inclusive growth, as well as our productivity, so looking at both of those elements. You will have noticed there's a lot of things identified in here, so it's really important for us to say this is not for us to be doing in isolation, and we work with a huge number of partners across the city. So just a couple of examples, so where the Civic University Agreement is in place with priorities around aspiration, well-being, sustainable and inclusive growth, and they obviously chime with a lot of our priorities identified here, so we very much see that's a key relationship to work together on those things. We've got devolution with the county deal opportunity that has a skills element, so very much about us looking at the active role we play in that in terms of the asks made around that will help and support the delivery of this strategy. We've got the Shared Prosperity Fund that we're currently working on the investment plan for, so opportunities there in year 3 around skills and employment, and for us to look at how that can address the priorities we've identified here. And very strong relationships with key partners, like I said, so particularly the college, we work very closely with them, looking at the opportunities through local skills improvement plans, and particularly looking at addressing the challenges around retrofit. I'm not going to go into all of the priorities we put in there in detail, because you will have an opportunity to have a look and read the summary in the report, but what I do want to say is it's important just to highlight this is not all completely new work. So we've been working on delivering a number of the activities in there over the past 18 months in particular. So just for example, where Exeter Works has been a product of the pandemic, if you like, to really support people as we come out of that situation, that really have the opportunity to evolve and develop and really support things around aspirations and helping people to think about developing their skills and supporting those furthest from the labour market. So we already have things that we've been doing that can very much drive the things forward that we've identified within this strategy. So in terms of next steps, so in line with the recommendation, approval at full council, we're proposing to produce a very short sort of 4-slide summary that makes this very easily digestible for people. inside and outside of the organisation. We are putting in a members briefing session for September, so some of you will remember we did something similar last year, but again to really focus on the priorities here. We want to finalise the action plan with our skills group and then review that group and get everyone up to speed and on the same page. So that's my introduction and overview of what I'm going to do, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rosie. It is a big report, and you're quite right to give us a big intro into it. Please have a television like this.
You can't get Rosie and Jules like that.
No, just tell me, can you hear me? Yes, of course you can.
They need to record them.
Okay. So, Kevin, Councillor Mitchell, do you want to make any remarks?
No comments on this.
No? Councillor Johnson?
There's anything.
Okay. I'll open it up to the floor. Any remarks? Councillor Morse?
Actually, I was going to mention the last time you came and sat in front of us. It's not only that, but the aeroplane, what they call that, flying, they've just gone bust as well. So we had that, and then we hit COVID, and we were, we came here with the skills strategy. I was going, we do realise thousands of people have just lost their jobs. So I just wanted to sort of commend you because you have carried on working on this, and I worked on some of the bring back Exeter sort of stuff with you, looking at some of those things, and I think the team have worked really hard to try and understand what happened during COVID and what needs to change as we move forward. And I just wanted to say thank you to the team because I think this is a really excellent report. There's some really interesting stuff, and as someone who represents Minster Whipton, it's really important to me that we've looked at the scenario deprivation, and there's a skills gap there as well. And how do we address that, even though we know we've got really good schools in Exeter, and in particularly that area as a good school, how do we still keep addressing that gap? So I just wanted to say thank you very much, and it's an excellent report, and we have to vote for it.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Chair. Emma has said a lot of what I do today. I think it's a brilliant report. I think the evidence base is just stunning. Never seen anything quite so embedded in real, comprehensive, wide-ranging evidence. So congratulations for actually commissioning that work. It's fantastic. I think the only thing that's missing for me is that you should be shouting from the rooftops all your achievements in the past year, 2 years. I mean, the Works Hub is absolutely fabulous. Where would we be at the moment in terms of supporting those supporting Ukrainian refugees? You've got careers groups, all sorts of things happening there, and it's all happening. You're just getting on with the job. So well done and congratulations. This is a great report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Wright?
Thank you. I just want to echo that. I think it's a stunning report, and we've already had a brief conversation about how useful I'm going to find that data myself personally, which I love data, I eat it, and it's just lovely to have so much that can be used across the board for so much of what we are all doing. I do have a couple of tiny weeny questions, but I'm going to save that because you said this was a draft report anyway, so I'll be able to ask you those minus some of the data in there. So I'll leave that for now. But yeah, really, really useful. So to echo what everyone else has said, well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anybody else? I know Kareem would like to come in. Kareem?
Yeah, so. Just as a strategic point, really, members signed off on a vision for the city. In the vision, you say by the time the child becomes an adult in the city, they will be living in a city which is inclusive, healthy, sustainable, and they fulfill their potential, their opportunities. They realise that. This is the way the city delivers on inclusive growth. It's a conscious decision you took as members when you pivoted economic development away from looking for inward investment in companies. Deliberately, you said you wanted to address the skills agenda because it was the way most direct that you would connect youngsters in our city, fulfilling their opportunities and their potential, and building a relationship with our educational providers. And the work that's going on with the Civic University Agreement along in terms of building the education ecosystem is again about how all the educational providers connect in with opportunities to enter the workforce and skill our residents. So the key thing for me is it's sometimes very easy to skate over something that actually is quite profound. A district council with no statutory responsibilities to do this work has moved from economic development, chasing inquiries from all over the place to land them in the city, to building a skills agenda that you've seen, and it is a fantastic report, but a practical body of work that's happening day in, day out. I can't remember the numbers of youngsters that are being taken through the construction fair. Do you remember how many went there?
So it depends. So apprenticeship show was about 4,000 back in March.
Okay, just let that linger. 4,000 people in this city, probably the wider travel work area as well, are being introduced to construction, and we know construction as a sector is desperately in need of skilled labour. We needed to deliver our retrofit programs for the future and net zero, but places like Exeter struggle to get things built because we haven't got the construction workers. And it is a direct route from areas, you can see the deprivation indices here. So I just think members just need to celebrate that. You're doing something that I think is remarkable, and it just needs to be shouted. I think Ruth was saying earlier. That's absolutely right.
Thank you, Creed. Duncan.
Thank you. Weird system. Okay. That sounds like it might be right. Thank you. I think Kareem said a lot of what I would have said. I think that the skills environment and what we're trying to achieve through this strategy is crucial. We're not only trying to help our current citizens in terms of aspiration, in terms of coaxing them back into work through apprenticeships, and trying to find out what the barriers are to those furthest from the labour market. And I think that's crucial in terms of what we are trying to achieve for our residents. But the city as a whole as well needs to be a fertile environment which will bring in business. We're a very fast-growing city. People need jobs. We don't want them to have to travel out to various other employments. Under my portfolio, we're talking about climate change. We need to reduce the amount of car travel so people living in the city work within the city. And I think that this ensuring that we have the right skill set to meet current employers' needs, but also to plan ahead so that we know we have the skill set growing and being and it's appropriate to the employers that we currently have and we are trying to attract to the city. So it's finding that balance, and I think that's where having the data set so detailed and so well researched is crucial, because we are trying to predict ahead of time where the employment market's going, and it is a very fast changing environment. And you'll notice when you get into the detail of the report that there's a lot of comments about the green technology and the green skills that we need to generate. That is a growing market, and I think that we've already proved with St Sidwell's, with our passive house, our own housing stock, with the other buildings that we've done throughout the city, that this is a place where we believe in tackling the climate change, and we build as one of the answers to that, to meeting that challenge. And having the green skill set being trained up through this in this city is crucial, and that will help to attract in businesses that specialise in that. So it all comes together. We need to retain the skill set, the skilled individuals we have. We need to draw in individuals who will take advantage of those opportunities, and we also need to draw in business because we're an expanding city and we need to stay vibrant.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. And just to say, I too think this is an important document. And what people have said to me that this is some time ago now, We are becoming a city of two halves. We are a prosperous city, but there are a lot of people who feel left behind and some people who are actually left behind. This is a document which is going to actually help. So when those people talk to me, I can say what we're doing. This is what we're doing. It's not a statutory provision, as Kareem quite rightly said. We choose to spend our money on this sort of thing, and in choosing to spend this money, I think it's the right choice for the future of Exeter. It helps to reskill people. Although everybody thinks skills agenda is just about young people, but there are other people at certain times of their life who need to change careers, go into another career, then this is there to help them, and it's very, very important to have that flexible, skilled workforce for the city. So yes, it's a very important document and really part of our aspirations and what we're trying to do as a Labour Council here in Exeter. So all those in favour of the recommendations, please show.
Well, that's unanimous vote, Chair. That has been carried.
Thank you very much. Now, the item 9 is the new statement of community involvement in proposed adoption, and here we are. Councillor Morse, you've got 2 recommendations if you'd like to read them for us.
Recommendations are that the executive gives delegation of authority to the Director of Planning and Development in consultation with the Council Leader and Portfolio of Exeter City Development to make editorial changes to the final SCIA document, and the executive support and the council adopts the final statement of community involvement, including any minor changes as per recommendation 1.
Thank you very much. Ian, or is it George who's going to talk to this? Ian.
I'll kick off.
Okay.
So thank you, Councillor Baylor, and thank you, Councillor Morse. So this statement of community involvement, or SCI, is a very important planning tool. That's because it explains to our residents how they can engage on planning applications, but also how the council will consult on plan making. It's also a legal requirement to have an up-to-date SCI. Unfortunately, Exeter's is very old, so we adopted it in as far back as 2006, and not surprisingly, it doesn't meet current legal requirements. So we need a new one, and it's very timely that the council is seeking to adopt this new SCI, because we've just started preparing the new local plan, the Exeter plan. So following best practice, you consulted on a draft SCI last autumn, alongside what's then the first stage of the new local plan issues consultation, if you can remember that. There were some comments that came in, and there were some minor changes to the document that have been incorporated into the document for you today. What the SCI does is set out a minimum requirement legally for consulting on planning applications and in plan making. But I'm really happy to say that as a local authority, as a city council, we want to go much further than that. And I'm the director of city development, very committed to going much further than what is legally the minimum. So the current SCI, as I say, has been updated, and what we've effectively put into that document now is a series of sort of changes which reflect the comments that we've received. As I say, I think the sort of key point I'd like to make is that through our work, particularly with George's team on the emerging plan, we do want to go a lot further. And some of you may well have experienced with this already. Out there on the high street, there's a pop-up exhibition, a Lego exhibition, and people are invited to go in and effectively build Lego models to represent what the future Exeter High Street might look like. And we can use that information because it will feed into emerging development of the Exeter plan, because it's quite an interactive form of engagement. It's one of those ways in which we can do things slightly differently. That pop-up exhibition is just a sort of taster, because there's going to be another exhibition that's going to be run in the RAM all summer, which will allow people to do similar things with Lego models again. And we're engaging with the RAM and Exeter Culture and the university on that project. And I think I'm really interested in some of the output from that, because I think it could be quite powerful in getting people to tell us what a future Exeter, what sort of future they want for the city. Another bit of news as well is that we're about to go and launch a sort of citywide consultation exercise on a future place initiative. Again, this is sort of sits outside the statutory consultation that we'll do on the local plan, but it's going to ask people questions about their local neighbourhoods and districts and what sort of future they see those districts being in 20 years' time. So again, information and the innovative way in which we're going to reach out to people will be used absolutely as we sort of prepare the local plan. So they're just a couple of examples of what we're going to do as an authority beyond what you're legally required to do. I think that's my main message, really, that this document sets out the baseline, get the basics right, but we'll do an awful lot more. And I'm really interested in any ideas or suggestions on how we can do more with our communities, because it's so important to planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Ian, just before I open it up, we have had an exchange of emails, and of course I'm desperately trying to find page 6 of the document, but it's paginated a little bit differently by Pack at the moment, on which we are going to replace a certain wording, and we're going to, well, I'll just read it quickly. We're going to replace it says in page 6, looking more widely, there will be opportunities to engage on livable Exeter through processes of communication, consultation and collaboration. This work will feed into the local plan and other policy preparation. We'll take that out and replace it with, through livable Exeter, the council will strengthen communities and create new neighbourhoods using innovative and interactive engagement tools. The council will better inform communities about livable Exeter and enable them to shape emerging development proposals as they come forward, as well as feeding into the new Exeter, in brackets, so the local plan. So that's it for the minutes. So if you're, I'll be moving that to the chair, and it's amended accordingly, if we're okay with that. So I'll now, taking that in mind, I'll now open it up. Before I go to the floor, Councillor Jobson, would you like to say anything at this stage?
Simply, let's not bother that. Simply on the issue of neighbourhood planning, I just wondered whether the section could make it clear that there is funding available for groups wishing to set up a neighbourhood plan through the locality budget. I just wondered whether, because it can seem quite daunting, neighbourhood plan, and there's a lot of help from locality.
So,
well, hang on, sorry. You've got to take it up yet. That's for us to consider. And, sorry, we'll have that. Anything else?
No, that was the...
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, apologise for my lateness tonight. It was the Exeter bus service, I'm afraid, which I'm sure you're all very used to. I would like to thank Ian for his introduction and also his comments. I've had correspondence previously, and as you're probably aware, I'm very much into neighbourhood planning, and believe that there is a way forward that you can involve all communities in looking at exactly what they want within their neighbourhoods for a period of time, and that doesn't contradict the local plan, it should be part of that process. It should add into that. So as he's probably aware, sadly the Exeter St James Forum recently disbanded, and there are various reasons why that ended up happening. So it would be good to have a conversation at some stage about that, so we as a City Council could learn from what's occurred in St James, and look at ways of developing that and improving that in the future. So I think that would be very helpful. Councillor Johnson's already mentioned about the time that it does take for neighbourhood plans, and the amount of support and input you need to have. And back in 2012-13, when the St James neighbourhood plan was implemented, a lot of support came forward from the City Council to enable that to be put in place. So I'm very interested in your reassurance if you want to go further than what this document states, because if we are going to move things like that forward, there will need to be extra support for communities who want to potentially implement that. But generally, I welcome this, and also I also would like to thank the chair for the amendments that he's accepted and brought forward as well, because that is very beneficial.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. I'm going to open it up now to for discussion. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. So thank you, Ian, firstly. It's a really excellent report, and what's really jumped out at me was almost the first words you were saying there was that you want to adopt best practice, and that's really, really reassuring to hear. I think that's demonstrated through how comprehensive the report is, and also the addition of Appendix A in particular, really caught my eye, because we've gone out there to the public consultation, we've asked for comments, lots of comments have come forward, but very few of them have actually required changes. So it kind of says to me that we're already doing what the community wants us to do, and not just ticking all the boxes for the minimum standards, we're going above and beyond that. So that's really great. And then the next thing from what your contribution was, that really is absolutely fantastic, is what's going on right now on the high street in that Gap store. We run lots and lots of consultations, some small, some big. We've run a mass citywide one 3 years out of every 4, where everybody over the age of 18 on the electoral register gets to vote. That's a huge consultation. But what we miss is the future. So now, future residents who are under 18, 15-year-olds, 12-year-olds, this is their city, this is their future, and they've now got an opportunity to go and engage maybe in a form that is they're more used to, something creative. They can go and build what they want their city to look like and feed into that consultation. So that's really great to hear that innovative things like that are taking place, and hopefully we can come up with some more great ideas like that, or you can. And so just well done, and thank you for the report.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. And Councillor Williams.
I'm taken by the covering report, section 8.3, because for me, this sort of set out how you are planning to do things. It says, whilst there is no legislative requirement for consultation on the FDI, an 8-week period of consultation was undertaken to meet best practice, and here's the council consultation charter. So that in itself, you've actually done more than was legally required just to actually produce this document. So that's great. I also picked up in the same way that Councillor Pearce did, that you've summarised the comments on that consultation. It's all tabulated, really easy to read and access, and responded to each one of those comments. So well done and congratulations for that. And also, I was really impressed at the innovative approach that you're thinking, and again, Councillor Pearce said, how you're engaging a whole range of ages, a whole range of people, different ideas for different things. And again, that is great work. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, is there anybody else want to come in on this? You're coming in at the end now. If nobody else want to come in? Councillor Watts.
Like Councillor Viola, who lives everywhere, I've done every weird job in the planning system you can possibly do. I'm not even a trained planner, which is an incredible achievement. And one of the jobs I did, I sat beside the development plan team for the Government Office for East of England. So I know how notoriously difficult it is to consult on any planning documents unless you're building a house in someone's back garden, at which point everyone's got an opinion. And I've watched over the years many different ways in which people have tried to do this. And I think we're at another one of those sort of moments where we go, how do we reinvent this wheel to make it work more effectively? And I think, you know, the stuff we're doing with the Lego, actually George found himself at a residents association the other week having a conversation. It is about getting out to the communities in the best ways that we possibly can. So I'm sort of echoing everything that everybody else has said. This is the bare minimum, really, although it's not the bare minimum, it's the bare minimum we're willing to do, and everything will be on top of that. So I'd like to thank everyone who's had all these great ideas to go and play with Lego, because it was a fun afternoon for me on Saturday to be sat in there playing with some Lego, but also that won't be the only way, and some people will want to engage formally because they like things like neighbourhood plans, and some people would much rather sit in their local park and have conversations and draw bits of paper. And I think we just need to understand that one answer will not fit all. What we might be passionate about, and I might have some very passionate ideas about what consultation is, does not suit everybody. And I think maybe as a council we need to understand that there are lots of different ways to do this, and hopefully we'll be using some of them. But it'll be fun to watch, I think, to see how daft we get at times. If we've started with Lego, there's a long way to go, isn't there?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. George, I know you're here. Is there anything you want to add to supplement? No? Happy? Just before I put it to the vote, this is important. I'm more than satisfied how we consult in this city. People have an opportunity to contact us, contact me, contact you, contact the local councillors, and we hear opinions through all sorts of ways. With regard to the neighbourhood plan, I've actually gone through the websites to have a look at it. I can navigate it. I feel sure a lot of other people can. I think this document points everybody towards it. I don't think we need to add any more. And you know, just as we did all those years ago, Councillor Mitchell, we would again. Anybody who wants to come forward in the group with a local plan, we are here to help them, not to obstruct them, and you'll be surprised if we don't. We will continue to help them, and I'm happy that we're doing this. This is an important document. So, all those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Thank you. And now that is the end of the formal meeting, and now we move into part 2. Finding the relevant thing.